Okay, so we're going to take some notes. We're going to add to your toolkit, and what I recommend is you fold your paper in thirds to help organize the information. You're going to submit this as evidence of your engagement with the lessons. So whatever I write down, you'll write down. You do need to write it down in your own handwriting. All right, so we're going to start this lesson with a review of the word statement. So I don't know if I've told you this, but I always use the triangle to highlight, symbolize, call your attention to the fact that we're focusing on some word as a fundamental and powerful concept that we're focusing on or concerned with at a particular moment. So right now I want to get back to the notion of a statement from the standpoint of logic. And write really small because we're going to fill this in. So a statement, remember, is a declarative sentence that makes an assertion about. In the argument lesson that you did previously, it might have said about reality. In this lesson, we're going to say about reality as well. And then we're going to add could be about some thing or someone. So I'm just adding a little bit more detail. So of course we could add even more. It could be about an action, a decision, about nature, about business, whatever, but I want to add something or someone for this lesson. All right, so now, as it turns out, we can talk about statements not only in terms of them being a premise or a conclusion, merely contextual, relevant, or irrelevant, and there's all kinds of ways we can talk about statements. We're going to focus on talking about statements in a way that will help us make moral sense of what's going on with George Floyd, the killing of George Floyd, the aftermath, the theories that we come across in this class, our own reasoning, our own positions, and those of our peers. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw an arrow from the center of the center column that we created with the paper folds. And we're going to draw an arrow. Don't draw the arrow down too deep or you won't have enough room. So you need your arrows to be not too downward sloping. Okay? So that's from the center. And we're going to start over here, about like in the middle of the first column, do a triangle like this, and then write the words moral statement. Don't write too far low or you won't fit everything. Moral statement. And then over here, I'm going to put a triangle over the fold between the second and third column, and that's going to be non-moral statement. And so the reading that you did introduced to you, gave you a basic idea of what we are up to here. Make sure you read that so you can get a sense of the big picture. Now what we're doing in the video-based instruction is we're going into the particulars. We're taking a moment to look at particular things, and we're going to make we're going to draw out some things from the reading, make sure that we understand what's going on, because we want to apply these things. Okay, so the way that we're going to define a moral statement in this class is that we are going to say, I'm going to start way over here to the left side of the paper, okay? I'm going to say a moral statement assigns a moral value to something or someone. Okay, so make sure you're at the top of this piece of paper because we need all of this down here. Then over here, so I'm going to do like a imaginary line, if you will, down the center of my second column. I'm going to start right here from the center of my second column. Does not assign a moral value to anything. Okay, so it does not assign a moral value to anything. So again, calling your attention to what the focus is at this moment. So Both moral statements and non-moral statements are declarative sentences that make assertions about reality, whether it be about something or someone. As it turns out, assertions about reality can be broken down into ones that assign a moral value to something or someone, but assertions about reality can also be broken down in terms of non-moral statements, that is, those that do not assign a moral value to anything. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is fold up your paper about an inch and a half max. If you can write really small, an inch would be sufficient and probably better. But what we're going to do now is we're going to focus on the word moral value. So I've been using that word moral value. So how do we know when somebody is naming a moral value? So right here at the top of the 1 inch space that we've created, so at the fold, the long fold, just underneath the line of the long fold, I'm going to write some. So I'm not saying this is a comprehensive list, but it's pretty good. Something, and I say this is not a comprehensive, this is a comprehensive or not a comprehensive list. We're about to create a list. So we want to say some words, phrases, that typically indicate, we could say name a moral value. Okay, so I'm going to draw a squiggly line because this is kind of like a text box that we're creating. Okay, so you can think of this down here as a text box with useful information. You'll definitely want to refer to it throughout the semester. So what are some words and phrases that typically name moral values? Let's create our list down here. So we're going to put the words in quotation marks. When I put words in quotation marks, just like words or word phrases, it's because I'm calling your attention to words themselves. So of course there's right, so the word right, and then it's opposing or opposite what? Wrong. Okay, so another set of words would be good, bad, moral, immoral, morally permissible / or impermissible, but that's not all. There's more. Morally correct, let's put quotation marks, incorrect, should not, ought to, or ought not to, ought to, ought not to, that's what I mean by that. Duty to or not to, so duty not to, in other words. Okay, let's write down a few more. You can say that something is obligatory, not obligatory, that's obligatory, not obligatory. In other words, another way that you might see this is that we have an obligation to, we have a moral obligation to, but you could also say is not moral, not obligatory, or not morally obligatory, or we do not have a moral obligation to. So that's just some variations on that. Another one that will be of major concern to us in this class is just, unjust, as well as fair. We probably won't be too concerned with this one. We'll be more concerned with justice and unfair. But we might. We shall see. Okay. So what I did here then was I've given you a list, a pretty good list of words that typically tell you that a moral value is being named. And I had to do that because of our definitions for moral statement and non-moral statement. Moral statements assign moral values to something or someone, so it helps to know some typical words that are used to do that. All right, so now at this point, I need to make something more explicit that the author gets at, but doesn't do, as far as I'm concerned, a good enough job in spelling out in the little 2-page reading that you did. All right, so we're going to further break down moral statements into 2 kinds. And what I realized for moral statement is I should have written the word over this center line right here. So I apologize for that. If I had done it correctly or to my liking, I would have formatted it better. And I would have put moral statement, the word right here, over this line right here. In any case, we're going to draw 2 arrows, but don't make them too downward because then you won't have enough room. So we still need to put some definitions and lecture notes and then some examples down here. All right, so, give me a second, I'm just checking something here. Okay, good. All right, so we can further break down moral statements also into 2 kinds. So in the center of this first column, I'm going to write, I'm going to draw another triangle, and I'm going to write the words way over here actually. General, so it says general, it's a G, E-N-E-R-A-L, moral principle. I don't need that in quotation marks. So general moral principle. And then over here, I'm going to also put a triangle. And we're going to write to the, so this is to the left of the fold in the first column, and then to the right of the fold in the second column, we're going to write particular moral judgment. We did go over the this imaginary line, but that's okay. We're staying within the second column. So we've got this column and this column created by this fold and this fold. Okay, so general moral principles and particular moral judgments are, as our diagram indicates, a kind of moral statement. In other words, they both assign a moral value to something or someone. And because they are statements, we know that they are declarative sentences that make an assertion about morality. And here, when we say moral value, we're saying they make a claim about the rightness or wrongness or the goodness or badness of someone or something. All right, so now let's get into some lessons. This is implied in the reading, but now we need to make it more explicit for the purposes of what will be going on in the future in this class. So a general moral principle. Okay, so one thing that it might do, it might or can claim or assert claims that a wide category of actions, you could say decisions, choices, whatnot, decisions are right or wrong. Okay. So notice here that I could use any of the words down here from the list as well. So I could say are obligatory, not obligatory, morally correct, not morally correct, morally permissible, not morally permissible. I could add all of those words here. I just want you to understand that I'm using these 2 as examples. The general idea is that general moral principles assert that a wide category of actions, it assigns a moral value to a wide category of actions. So it could say that they're right or wrong, good or bad, obligatory, not obligatory, and whatnot. General moral principles, or, so we can put the word or here. Okay, say or so claims that an entire class, in fact, we should capitalize that, an entire class of people are good or bad. And I really wish I'd capitalize people, but we'll do underline. Okay. So a general moral principle may claim that, so I have claims that a wide category of actions or decisions are right or wrong, or that an entire class of people are good or bad. So the verb part for this definition is up here. I should have put that right there. I can get rid of that. Okay, so one thing I want you to understand about any general moral principle, I'm using the bracket to say this is true about all of them, is that these get applied to non-moral statements. Okay. What about a particular moral judgment? A particular moral judgment claims a particular action or decision is itself right or wrong. Okay, so keywords in here. Particular action or decision is itself right or wrong, or that a particular person is good or bad. Okay. So what I want you to understand about particular moral judgments is that this is the results we get when a general moral principle, so GMP refers to general moral principle, is applied to a non-moral statement. So the key word in here is result. In here, this is applied. Okay, so a particular moral judgment and a general moral principle are both moral statements. They're both statements, and of course, a moral statement and a non-moral statement are both kinds of statements. General moral principles are like rules, principles, guides, okay, that you can apply to a concern, a non-moral concern, to make moral sense of the non-moral concern. But you apply these, they're general. These are going to be particular. When it comes to particular moral judgments and actions, it could refer to actions that have already occurred, or decisions that have already been made in the past, or those that we're thinking about, or decisions we're thinking of making, or choices we're thinking of making, or actions that we're thinking of engaging in. Likewise with here, when we're talking about a particular moral judgment and that a claim is being made that a particular person is good or bad, it could be about a person who is dead, a person who is alive. It could even be about an imaginative person. So for example, if you watched The 100, The 3%, or Breaking Bad, or The Walking Dead, they're always coming up with these ethical scenarios and situations. We can talk about the morality of different characters in those TV shows or in those Netflix series. And when we do, those people are fictional because they're characters on next Netflix series, but we can still say that a particular character is good or bad, or that an action that was taken in a movie or a made-up story is right or wrong or good or bad. So I want you to know that. So these can have to do with things that have happened in the past, people who are dead, actions that haven't happened yet, but that could happen. Could be about people who are alive, or even imaginative people. So if you want to, you can add those notes or add them somewhere else, like maybe go back to your notes where you did tips and warnings, and you could add that kind of elaboration there.